answer questions and let you know a little bit about kind of how we do things. Hello. That's okay. I really just wanted this to be kind of an informal questions and that sort of thing, but to let you know why we have the things we have in the motor room and why we do what we do, and then let you all ask questions of any kind that you have of me. In this age group, since we're kind of working with the majority of them on, some of them on crawling, some on walking, and some on just developing increased balance skills when they are at walking, we do a lot of crawling, a lot of climbing. Climbing actually is really a better way to put it. My goal is to get them to climb over something and really put weight on their hands and begin to develop all that upper extremity strength, and mainly the shoulder girdle strength. That once they get up walking, we don't really develop that as well. I mean, that's what crawling is really all about and why we encourage crawling so much. But once you've got what you need for crawling, then that next step is climbing, and that pushing up with the arms of the body weight to get up onto something and to lift themselves up. Then that starts to develop all the muscles in the top of the back, around the shoulder blades, and also here in front, but begins to develop a little different set of muscles. And so in this classroom, my main goal is we are just climbing as much as we can climb. And we're climbing over things, or we're stepping, if they're walking, we're stepping over things that force the center of gravity to change, for them to come out of their happy place or their comfortable place in terms of balance, and making them come a little bit further out and use their trunk and develop those balance skills in a different way. So we do little obstacle courses. We go up and down inclines, because that, either walking or crawling, you have to do things a little bit differently than you do on a flat surface. And so if you're going up an incline, you're pushing a little bit harder with your knees. If you're coming down an incline and you're crawling, you're putting a lot more weight on your hands. So it's changing what your body has to do in a situation, and it's not the routine motor pattern that we all get used to. And especially our kids that their tone is low, they find that place that they can be, and they do not want to get out of it. So we're trying to encourage that, moving a little bit out of that comfort zone, and working in a little bit different way, and using our bodies in a little bit different way. So that's the majority of what we do when we're in the gross motor room, is just finding different ways to activate different. Sitting on the peanut ball is another thing we do in the classroom, or on the bolsters, and even just sitting on those little stools is a way to work on sit to stand for those who are still not walking, to work on developing that lower extremity strength. But the peanut balls and the bolsters, because they move, require a little bit more work of the trunk. And they have to do. The peanut ball it looks a little bit like a peanut. It's kind of a saddle. I can go get you one. I'll show you. And I really encourage them at home.
And the peanut ball is the ball.
I'll go get one in a minute. They can straddle it and sit on it like a horse and bounce, and then it moves. Every time they move, it doesn't move like a big physio ball or a Swiss ball where they really can't control it.
Yes.
This moves enough that then they have to kind of activate all of their trunk and also their feet, which we sometimes have a hard time getting activation of those feet in a balance reaction. So it requires them to do that, and kind of makes them aware of the fact that their feet help them with balance when they're sitting also, and kind of makes them a little bit more aware of what those feet do for them. So, peanut ball is another good way to work on that trunk control and kind of moving out of a comfort zone and getting set in one position and not really wanting to move out of it. So, on Wednesdays, we typically either play outside or in the gross motor room. And we'll work on all these things, and I'll share with Karen and the aides why we're doing what we're doing and suggestions of things they can do in the classroom, or when they're in the gross motor room, things they can be doing on the days that I'm not here. And then on Fridays, I try to come into the classroom itself and look at opportunities to do things to kind of push them forward a little bit in their gross motor skills in the classroom so that they can be utilizing their time here in that way also. Because what really matters is what happens all day long, not just the little bit of time that I'm with them. What matters is, and that's what's so wonderful about this school, is that they are so good about taking what we have to offer in terms of suggestions and then incorporating them into the day. And actually doing some of those things over and over and over again. And then we start to see a lot of the progress that we do. I've worked in public schools, and I didn't see that type of carryover as well as I have here, and that's what's been so fun for me working here at my school, is that I actually can see all of these suggestions put into practice and progress made because of that. Absolutely. So, anyway, does that answer any questions or bring up any questions? Any of those things?
Just a word of thanks. When Jane was there, you helped her learn to walk.
Well, it's fun. This is a fun age because you see such big changes, you know, from crawling to walking in this year. Or sometimes it takes 2 years, you know. It just all varies between children. But sometimes they'll come in and they're barely even moving, and by the time they're out of the classroom or the next year, they're up and walking. So it's very satisfying to see that.
No doubt. I think in your letter said something about using one leg to push up, and he's starting to actively do that. He's leading with his right and just using one leg to kind of vault himself up. He started that 2 or 3 days ago.
Good.
But he was in class, I guess, yesterday when he did it. He's doing it at home too, where he's really getting that leg underneath it, shoving himself up. Yeah, more than he was.
And those are that's what I feel like my role is mainly to help you all, because we know that our kids find a way to do things somehow because they're motivated to do it. It's just that it's not always the best way for them developmentally to learn to do it, and that they've compensated for what they don't have. And if they develop those motor patterns in a compensatory way as opposed to a strengthening and sort of like building blocks, then when it's time to move up to the next level, we don't have those building blocks that we need at the bottom. And so we have to work backwards and take away that compensatory movement and then try to get into a little bit more functional and more appropriate movement. So that's one of that half kneeling is what we call it, is one of those things that many of our kids will not do unless they're really kind of shown how to do it and forced to do it. They'll try to push up, they'll just try to get up on their tippy toes and kind of extend those knees and come up, as opposed to working through that half kneeling position. So the sooner we can start it, the better time, more time we have to kind of develop that a little bit more appropriate skill. So it's fun to see.
Yeah, I really noticed that.
It's fun to
These last
see.
few days, really.
And with everyone, everybody's getting outside therapies also. So I'm happy to visit with any of the outside therapists, if you would like me to. I think they're probably doing a lot of the same things, and a lot of this is probably repeat information for you all. But what's nice in a school setting is that, as I said, that can be reinforced all day long, as opposed to just in a therapy session. And then it really does become part of their movement pattern, and then we can move on to that next higher level. So.
I have a question that's not really related to the walking or the movement like that. But Matthew will still sometimes when he's sleeping, he'll be sort of in the cross-legged position, and then his little trunk will go forward, and so he's sleeping like
James
that.
still sleeps that way.
Is that really bad? And should I kind of unfold his legs and straighten him out at the risk of waking him up when I'm so happy he's asleep?
I know.
What are the thoughts on that?
That's really tough. I think it just depends. If he's really asleep and you think you can bring him back out, I think it's nice for their body to feel something different. I think that is a position of comfort and helps them calm and go to sleep. So it's hard to take that away from them, because that is what they know and that's how they've learned. But I think if you can do it without waking him, I think it's not a bad idea, mainly because if he stays like that, and he may not stay that like very long.
He moves a lot.
Yeah, if he moves a lot, then I wouldn't worry about it. If he stays there and doesn't move a whole lot, then the issue is that tightness that they can get in their hips, because they stay abducted like that for a long period of time, and then the hip muscles on the sides of the hip get shortened, and then it's hard for them to bring their knees together when they need to. That would be my main reason for.
I wondered about the circulation too. Blood can't get all the way to his little feet. He's folded up like that.
I know it. I call it the frog position, because all it is. But I know Jane would get up some morning, or does get up some mornings, and she says hurt. She does a lot of sign language. And,
she does.
Yeah, and the doctor said too, the same thing, to try to not let her stay in the same position too long. Now Jane does get up and travel around. She'll get out of bed, sleep under the bed, behind the chair. You'll find her anywhere. So she does travel, but it's not good to stay in the same position. Her pediatrician said.
That's right. And most of the time, even when we're asleep, if the circulation is cut off a little bit, it becomes uncomfortable, and we move, and they do too. If it's a circulation thing, and typically that isn't going to be an issue, other than if they can't get out of that position. But if he can, I think and he moves around, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I really
It seems
wouldn't.
like he does it less too.
And part of that is that because their tone is so low, when they lay down, they don't have kind of that strength in all of the muscles of the hip to keep that from happening. A lot of that is kind of just gravity at work too. And until they get stronger in those hip muscles, that's just gravity. When you go to sleep and you relax, and boom, those knees go out. So as they get stronger and older, that usually decreases some too.
Yeah, because it's usually after he's been sitting up awake, and then he
falls asleep.
Yeah,
And he's
and sleeps on top of his legs.
Yeah.
And just,
And we do unfold him at class, so just so that you guys know, he only lasts that way about 30 seconds. But we're like, put your legs out flat. Stella too.
I never find her sleeping that way.
She will fall asleep if we let her with her legs up and her stomach down. She'll pull them up. Not crossed, like it's a different position than what he does, but she will definitely pull her legs up and then kind of lay down like that.
And
It might just be in class too.
they have such laxity in their hips that it is hard for them to really keep them any other way. So sometimes we do have to help them. But when I watch how they splay those legs out, and it just hurts me so badly. But I know it doesn't hurt them. They're just, they have that movement in there. Not that that's necessarily good or bad, it just is. And down the road, you know, hopefully as they get older and the muscles get stronger, then those hips stay in a little bit better alignment. Because down the road you don't want any hip deformities and that sort of thing. But I don't, the sleeping is not going to do that, and as long as they're working those muscles and strengthening, it shouldn't become an issue either.
Yeah, it's funny at dance, they have to put their legs out like this, and all the little girls are going, "Oh, that hurts," and Jane's going, Jane's going, "Whoa, what are you talking about?"
And this is great.
And then they put their feet out in the front, and then they lay their heads down. The little girls, "Oh, that hurts my legs, that hurts." And Jane is,
Exactly. So, you know, there are usually those hamstrings are pretty good and lengthened, which most kiddos have a problem with. So that's a plus. Too. But is there anything in particular, school-wise, or anything I can answer for you all about?
Is sleeping in a big girl bed, transitioning from crib to big girl bed, does that make a difference with her, like where the kids are their level-wise of their gross motor skills, or is it more?
Well, I mean, I guess in terms of safety, I think for me is the main thing. And then, you know, if they can climb up into bed, or if they can get out of bed safely by putting their feet down and, you know, getting themselves in and out and that sort of thing.
Okay.
That would probably be my main I guess, criteria.
Okay.
For sleeping in a big girl bed, because it is a good workout to climb up into bed if it's not too terribly high. Or if even if you were to get a stool, just a little step stool, so she climbed. That's really great work climbing up, and then sliding down on feet is a good thing to learn also.
Okay.
That safety awareness is something that's not always present. With some it is, and with some it isn't. Some kiddos are overly cautious and don't want to move. Others move and don't really know the boundaries and the limits of safety. So I think that would be my main thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
are you thinking
Or is that what you?
Are you asking if she'll like lose
point.
gross motor,
No,
or
that,
just
like we were gonna do it when he was born. Give him her crib, and I was like, well, you know, a lot of her typical friends in playgroup are able to do it, but I don't know if it's kind of dependent on where she is physically. So I just was kind of interested that way.
I just think if you feel like she can, you know, if she can climb in and out and is safe in there, and you know, I mean with my kiddos always had a little.
Right. Yeah.
Now they have that nice little net thing that just, you know, as long as you feel like she's okay in there, I would think it would be, you know, 2.5-ish, whatever.
Okay.
So, I would think so. If she may want to and she may not. You know,
Right, yeah.
sometimes
Exactly.
sometimes they don't want to give up that crib, and other times they're ready to be the big girls. So
especially with another baby
I was
in the
just
house.
going to say, she may want to stay in that crib a little bit longer, or she may want to be big sister. It's hard to say. Hard to say. Anything else that I can?
Is that a book that
And
you
then,
recommend?
yes, have you all seen? You all have this? Okay. I just wanted to be sure you all did. I pulled out just the motor milestones for that. These are mainly for those who are not yet walking, kind of working on walking. And I didn't know if you all had looked at these anytime recently, or if you look at them.
I looked at it a lot when we had an ECI. We had some transition problems with when the former ECI physical therapist had a baby, and so they had a hard time finding someone to take over. And so we didn't have service for a little while, but she wasn't much of a teacher. She wasn't teaching. She would just do, and so I just have to watch and figure out what was going on in there when Matthew was younger.
Okay, so this was real
You've got the
helpful
gross
to you.
and the fine, yeah.
Okay, you got them both. Yeah, I think it is a great book. It's a good resource. But I just thought if you didn't have it or if you wanted to, this is just kind of the progression of moving into standing and pulling up into stand, that kind of thing, and then it moves into the next one of cruising and taking steps and that sort of thing. So if you have it, you can look it up. But I like the way it's laid out because it kind of moves through each of those developmental stages and gives you some really good ideas for home and taking those little incremental steps to get there, to get where we want to go with them. So, well, good. I'm glad y'all have that to work from. If you would like these, you're welcome to have them.
I have one more quick question. Once our kiddos hit a milestone, like if they hit crawling or pulling up, and then they're kind of, crawling everywhere, do we still work on them once they go? So say if Hadley's working, do I still work on her with crawling, or do I do the climbing of the stairs and that kind of stuff?
The climbing of the stairs,
Okay.
and that would kind of be the next step.
Okay.
The thing that I've learned over the years, across the board with the children I work with, is that once they're up walking, it's really hard to get them back down. And if they haven't really gotten all they need when they're down, we have to really work hard to get that. But the climbing is the way that I've found to really work on all of those skills once they're up walking.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about like rolling? Like I know she used to, it was a big milestone when she was little, and now she does it. But I don't know if I said like, let's roll. If she could do that, are those kind of things?
Well, I
things
think
that we
it's
should-
never a bad idea because the vestibular system, our inner ear, is a really crucial part of our brains in terms of facilitating movement and facilitating also tone. So we want to make sure that system stays activated and used and sometimes challenged a little bit. That's one reason we work on balance and that sort of thing, because that's all vestibular also. But the rolling and swinging and all of those things are really important for our kids. Partly because they're not as driven to do them sometimes as other children are. They're not always motor driven and they don't have that drive to do all that movement. So we need to give it to them in a way that they can handle it. Some can handle more than others, but swinging and rolling down a hill or somersaulting we're not ready for and really don't want to encourage with Down syndrome because of the instability in the neck in case your child has that atlantoaxial instability, which they'll usually x-ray for. Have y'all had that? Has that done?
Typically, does
About
that
three.
Oh yeah, you're not, because they're not in an age where they're going to be doing that. But you want to do that at some point, just so you know, so you can be cautious of that. But even just carrying them upside down, rough housing, swinging on tummies, swinging in your lap on a swing, rotary movement, either rolling or on a swing, like a tire swing that goes around, or if you're holding them and you can kind of make a big circular movement. Any kind of big movement like that is very helpful to our nervous systems and helping us to know, not only to help us move, but to know where we are in space and what we're doing in space. Because sometimes that is a hindrance for our kids. They're not really sure where they are in space, where their body is in relation to itself. And so because they don't know really where they are, they don't really know how to start doing something they want to do. And that vestibular system can help sort of jumpstart that a little bit. Or keep it where we want it to be.
Gotcha.
Kim, going back to what you said, some of the things that we do in class to work on the rolling or the crawling that you're saying that, obviously she's past that, but you know, you can roll down hills or roll on the ramps that we do, and then to work on the crawling, we crawl up the slides, and then we've got the kind of a ladder-ish type slide that they crawl on that goes up, and then we do a lot of bear crawling up and down the ramp. So she likes to bear crawl if I'm bear crawling with her.
Okay.
So I do it, and I'm okay, now Hadley's turn. And so we do a lot of those things that build what they've already done, but then I'm doing it with her for most of it. And like the rolling down the ramp, I roll down the ramp, and then she'll roll down the ramp. So you can work on those things, but she's definitely not going to go out of her way to do it on her own.
Gotcha.
And she doesn't want to do it unless we're doing it as well. So
That's good to know.
Oh, that is good to know. Yeah.
Yep.
For her especially, yeah. In particular,
Yep.
yeah. And bear walking is a great kind of a different way of crawling. So we're using things, we're coming up a little bit higher against gravity, so we have to put a little bit more weight through our arms and legs, coordination-wise.
Matthew likes
requires
it, as
a
long
little
as you're
bit-
doing it too.
We
It's
fight on the bed. You know, I get him on the bed and we tickle him and roll.
right,
I've
good.
learned to not be as cautious with him. He's tough. And
Jane liked that on the bed. Oh,
hit
the time she was baby.
Yeah.
And because Jane really, she loves all that heavy
Yes,
work.
she does.
That's what she needs. And so that, you know,
But she still doesn't know where she is in space.
that even with all of
She
it,
doesn't.
yeah. Exactly. And so that vestibular system is part of that system that helps us to learn all of that also.
A fun song that Jane and Joan both like is a Wiggles song, "Rolling Down the Sand Dunes," and they're rolling down the sand dune on the DVD, and the girls would just roll across the floor because it's going rolling down. That's all it says.
Yes.
Rolling down the sand dune, rolling down, and they'll just roll all across the floor and then they'll roll back. Jane and Joan both will do it. So
That's a
if you
great
want
idea,
a fun
yeah.
rolling,
Yeah.
and you can find that on Sprouts on TV.
It's on YouTube
Wiggles.
too.
Oh,
They have
awesome.
the little,
On
if you
YouTube.
just put in the Wiggles rolling down the sand dunes, they have
Yes.
little clips of it. It's like a 2-minute long clip, and it's
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
They
Okay.
just roll and roll and roll. The kids roll and roll and roll.
yep.
Yeah. And I think seeing someone else do it makes a huge difference.
And these are adults. This is 4 or 6 adults rolling down the sand dune.
Yeah.
So the swinging, at our other location, we did not have access to swings outside. I'm thrilled to have the swing set, even though we do not have all the swings that we had hoped we would have yet. It is an excellent, excellent thing for all of our kids. I feel like in general our kids, because of the liability now that is out there with swing sets everywhere, and we don't access them. We don't have them to access like we did when I was growing up. We're seeing the effects of that in our kids and their inability sometimes to stay focused and to pay attention and to know their bodies in the classroom and elsewhere. It's a really important part of our development, that vestibular system. So we do try to access it as much as we can. You know, it's a good thing.
Swing seats. You know, we've had, he's in one that, you know, kind of, I don't know what that thing is. The bar comes down and it locks in. And I don't really like that one as well as I like the one where he sits up in it, and
It's
he
just like
seems
the
to
little,
dig that one.
Yeah, that doesn't have anything on the top.
Yeah,
I
it's like
think that
a
one's good because
diaper.
they really have to move around. You know, they really have to hold their balance themselves.
The little bucket seat,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
the one you're speaking
Yeah.
of? That we're supposed to get one of those. We're still waiting on it. We've had all kinds of issues with our playscape, but I do have a bucket seat as one of the things. We're going to have one sling seat like we have now, a bucket seat, and then a more adapted seat for those that really aren't able to sit up at all. But yes, I agree. You have to work a lot harder in those, and I think that's.
They have to use their arms
That's
to
right.
kind of hold at first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they really do have to. They have to work a little bit harder in those. Absolutely.
He likes it though. He likes that one, I think, better than laying back.
He does.
I think that bugs him a little bit. I mean, he likes that one, but he'll, on the playground, he'll stay in the bucket one.
If he has the
Well,
option.
I think so.
One of the things that we've been doing with y'all's kids, because we have the sling seats right now, is that we sit down and then we put them facing us and then have them hold onto the chains, and we just put our hands behind them to keep them safe, and then we have them hold on themselves on the chain, and then we just swing back and forth with them in our laps. And that seems to work out pretty well for them, having to work their arms and their
Their
core a
trunks.
lot.
Mhm.
So
It's a great way to work on that too. And for them to understand what to do with their arms, sometimes they really don't understand that these are for pulling and pushing, not just for crawling or not just for holding on, but that pushing and pulling and developing all the musculature up here in the chest and in the trunk. So that backward swinging is a nice way to do it, and just and every once in a while, if you're swinging, then stop real abruptly, so that they have to pull all that together and realize that they can do it. Because a lot of times I just don't know what they can do, unless we sort of show it to them in those ways. Too. We're going to work a lot on squatting and up and down, picking things up as we get up, walking more, and supported standing and squatting to pick things up to develop their lower extremity knee control and strength and steps and all kinds of things. So,
And carrying things upstairs.
and carrying things, and just carrying them on a regular surface once they're walking, just to like for Hadley, having her carry something that
It can be just a diaper. Just the idea.
of holding and holding both something with both hands, so that they don't have their arms to use for balance, and they have to really access their trunk, and the stability in their trunk is a really good way to work on it without them knowing. You know, when they see me come in, they know, they usually fuss, and they aren't real happy because they know we're going to work. But we try to make it fun at the same time, but it is work for them, and they know it. It is just so amazing to me how quickly they figure that out. I know who you are. I know who you are. Joy says they can sniff me out. But that is a nice way to work on that trunk control, and then as they get better at it, putting a little bit of weight on it, so that then they have to really adapt to that too. So those are just kind of easy ways to sort of up the ante a little bit for them in terms of trunk control and gross motor activity and that type of thing.
Those are my favorite things to work on. Things that are fun, but that are good for them.
Exactly.
Like a little puzzle, the puzzle with pegs, and have them pick out the pieces.
And work on fine motor, absolutely.
He can moo and quack, make all the animal noises, but he's still working.
Absolutely. And doing that on his tummy, where he's having to do it and be on his elbow.
Anymore, 'cause he pops
He
up so
wants to
quick,
sit
and,
up.
he's always been a sitter. Ever since he could sit, he would sit and not stay on his belly. It's too quick and too fast.
They don't like their bellies a lot sometimes. Or over the peanut ball, which I'll go get one and show it to you. I've considered just sending out an email and purchasing several of them and letting you all buy them at the price that I pay for them, just because I feel like they're really very, very helpful at home for sitting, and also for on his tummy, kind of rolling over onto it and doing fine motor things on their hands and weight bearing on their hands too. Are you familiar with the peanut ball?
Yes, we use it.
You have, okay.
And you know what else we use?
What's that?
That the Howdy, the Rhodey and
Yeah.
Howdy.
we have-
Who is
yeah.
Howdy? I don't know.
I don't know. Is Howdy?
Howdy's like trumpet. The people who make the little socks, they have their version of Rhodey
Rhodey.
is Howdy, which is like a cow, but it's the same kind of thing.
Same, yes.
But
Yeah, we have a Rhodey.
lot cheaper.
You have Rhodey? Okay. Rhodey to me sometimes is a little,
He's really
he's really
unfair.
hard. I think
like a
Rhodey's
horse
really
that has a
hard when
peanut ball
we're
on the
just
bottom with a
really
head and
working,
ears.
starting to get that trunk control.
It's like a
But
rocking horse, but it made out of rubbery stuff.
Yeah, I would. If you.
They came
would you
in.
be
Oh,
interested?
yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
okay.
Yeah.
I might just go ahead and do
have
that,
one.
and
Yeah,
then,
I probably wrote it down.
okay.
Yeah.
So I
So I
think,
saw him when we were, I guess, on Wednesday or whatever. I thought the peanut thing would be.
they're just a
Cool.
really
You liked
great
it?
tool that you can use in lots of different ways. We had a little girl several years ago who really did not have Downs, but very low tone, not much trunk control at all. And we had her sit on it pretty consistently every day